So even by the standards of the Dan Nicholl Show, where we get to do some pretty cool stuff, this is special. This is an iconic rugby venue. It's Twickenham, home of the last Rugby World Cup final. And with me is a rugby icon, Sir John Kirwan. A very good morning.
Good to see you, Dan. Nice to be here. Well, we're at Twickenham. We're, you know, a South African and a Kiwi sitting here in the home of football, so it's interesting.
Good memories for New Zealand of this particular stadium, given that 4 years ago, this was where the most recent addition to that rather large trophy cabinet took place.
Yeah, and I was here. I was lucky enough to spend, you know, the whole tournament here, and it was an amazing occasion, and, you know, important for New Zealand because people have forgotten very quickly that we lost the World Cup for 20-odd years, you know. We're warming up again, aren't we? The talk is all about this Six Nations, but really leading into what's going to be a big World Cup for both our nations.
When we look at the game of rugby, for us as South Africans, you're an iconic figure of the game. Many of us grew up watching you, admiring you. What were your thoughts? What are your memories of South African rugby?
I love playing South Africa. Very similar in attitude, very similar in philosophy around the game. So for me, always tough, always hard, and always important to win because we had the banter after the game as well. You know, I think we have the similar sorts of sense of humour and you know, we like taking the mickey out of each other, so it's always good to get a win because you know that there's going to be some banter coming.
You were a hard man out on the field, you were a fierce competitor, you were part of an extraordinary side. It was only after your career, though, that we discovered that that was almost something of a facade, and that while you looked like the hard, tough man out on the rugby field, inside there were a lot of challenges going on.
Yeah, I suffered a pretty severe depression during my career. So I suffered from, you know, anxiety and depression. Anxiety as I was playing, but then that fell into depression during my career. So that was a really defining moment. You know, I wanted to jump out of a window one day, and so that was a sort of turning point for me to either do that or get help, you know. I think the biggest thing for me is I thought it was a weakness, and it wasn't until I hit the wall. So I probably kept it quiet for 5 years, you know, and it wasn't until I actually fell into the depression that I started to reach out and get help. And, you know, men don't do that, and yet it's an illness, like any other illness, you know. And once I started treating it like an illness and wanted to get better was when I started learning the techniques, started understanding myself a lot more, and really started to get on top of those things like anxiety and performance anxiety and self-doubt and stuff like that. So for me it was an incredible you know, journey, for want of a better word. And you know, I often talk to players that are coming to the end of their career because unfortunately in professional sport 95% of people are going to suffer some sort of anxiety or depression or self-doubt when they've finished their career, and so that transition I think it's really important that we prepare for mentally, and especially for males.
It was an extraordinary career nonetheless, but I think what you're doing now is having even more of an impact because you are traveling the world, you are spreading the gospel of mental health, and it almost seems like a calling that you've understood. You've been through this and you want to do your best to try and make sure other people realise that it's okay to not be okay. Probably the greatest anxiety for most of us South Africans at the moment is that there is a World Cup later this year and there's a team who wear black jerseys who sit in our way for the very first game. Last year New Zealand lost the game in Wellington. Great for us, big surprise for the rugby world. Ireland then with the victory. Is this suddenly a frail and vulnerable All Black side, or are those defeats just going to make them all the tougher come the World Cup this year?
I don't think frail and vulnerable, I'd probably use those words. What I would say is that New Zealand's been very dominant for probably 5 years, and everyone's caught up. And I think, you know, especially that South African game in Wellington for me was a real turning point for your young players. So they were really average for 25 minutes, and I thought we were going to put 40 points on the team. And then, you know, they just hung in there, and you could see them growing in belief through their defence, and then came out winning. Ireland was the same, you know, so I think it's more even So I think there's 5 sides in this year's World Cup that can compete to win, of which we're one of. So I think it's the most exciting World Cup we've had for a while, and I can't wait.
It looks like a terrific World Cup. I'm going to get out there to watch. I'll look forward to catching up with you when I'm there. And I'm going to put a little bet on the table here. That opening game, it's going to define a huge amount of the World Cup. The losing team probably has Ireland in the quarterfinal, so you don't want to lose that one. I reckon South Africa are going to be up for it. Naturally, you'll be backing the All Blacks. You've got your JK14 wine brand. My good friend Ernie Else makes some lovely South African wine. You guys beat us. I'll provide you with a bottle of Ernie's Best, and if South Africa win it, it's a bottle of JK14 coming my way.
I think we should raise the odds. I reckon we should go a case.
Case it is.
A case it is. So I am really happy to put that bet on,
right.
And I will see you there.
Looking forward to it. Sir John Kirwan, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure, Dan.